Hello class, this is Dr. David Gregg, and this course is ADA 6400 CECP 6390 Co-occurring Disorders for summer 2020. What I'm providing here is a brief introduction to the course where I'm going to show you the syllabus and how the course content aligns with the course syllabus. So first what we have here is the home page. What you see is an old course introduction here as I'm recording this. I'm going to put up this new one. This one I'm doing right now doesn't have a view of me. Sorry about that. I'm using different software right now. There's also a few other things on this home page here, like this instruction or this instructor introduction video. You can watch that to see a little bit more about me. Okay, so first things first, let me show you where you can find the syllabus on e-learning. I should have already emailed you a copy of it, but there are two places here that you can find it. First, you go to this overview tab, click here. You can find the syllabus right here to look through. So it's all right on there. Now if you want to ever download another copy of it, go to the Start Here tab, click this, and you'll see the class syllabus will be the first sub-module in the Start Here. Lots of other important stuff in this Start Here module to keep track of. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So first, let's go ahead and click on the syllabus within the Start Here module. You're going to see the whole thing a little bit larger here, a little bit easier to see. Of course, this class is going to be all online. This is my email. We got a little bit of a course description here, some of the course objectives. Important to note here, we have the required textbooks, Atkins 2014, Daly and Moss 2002, 2002. My goodness, it's been a long time since I've been in the 2000s. Anyway, let's take a look at the textbooks. I have a couple pictures of them here for you, just to confirm their appearance. And they're all here online. As you can see, we don't have to spend a whole lot of cash on these, which is nice. Got the Dual Disorders book here. It's an older one. We're not going to need this one until later into the course. So if you're going to get either of these, make sure to get Atkins first. Be sure to at least get this one by halfway through the semester to make sure that you have it ready and available. There are two other textbooks that I highly recommend, one or the other. One, of course, is the DSM-5. The reason why I highly recommend getting this is because I will require students to mention and state specific symptoms. So I want to see the specific symptoms from the DSM mentioned when we're talking about diagnostic criteria for our case examples. Another important alternative to the DSM-5 is the DSM-5 desk reference. So it just says desk reference to the DSM-5 on it. It's a bit cheaper, and it provides just the information we need, all those symptoms. The DSM-5, the larger original one, can be a bit cumbersome because it's really large and has a lot of extra clinical information in there that is important but not necessary for what we're doing. So I recommend this desk reference if you're looking for something a bit easier if you don't already have the DSM-5. All right, back to the syllabus. Below here, we see the articles. I'm going to have us reading quite a few different research articles in this class. Typically, you're going to have only one or two per week, but here's a full list of all the different references that you'll see in the course schedule near the bottom of this syllabus. Here is the everything you're going to be graded for in this class, and it's sectioned into three parts. One are the reading assignments. You're going to have different reading assignments due every week. Sometimes you're going to have Dropbox papers. Sometimes you're going to have discussions. And almost every week, actually every week, you're going to have at least one lecture response where you're going to have to watch a lecture video and then give a very brief response to the content of that lecture. And I have those in the content section on e-learning to share with you in a minute. So these are kind of weekly things. Keep in mind if you ever submit one late or forget, you can always submit your weekly reading assignments late, except for half points, but you can always get those into me anyway if they're late. Also notice that discussions typically are allowed to be a little shorter than our Dropbox papers. Treat these as mini papers. Make sure that you have good citing. You're citing any outside sources or quoting them. You're adding quotations. Never add more than 1/3 of a paper of direct quotes. Make sure it's your own content that you're providing, and minimal direct quoting from outside sources. Cite all the outside sources. One thing that's unique about discussions is you must also reply to one other student. And you'll have to do that reply by the following day. So keep in mind, all these reading assignments are going to be due on Sundays by 11:59. Therefore, the reply will be due by Monday at 8 p.m. for each of these discussions. That's something unique that's different with discussions than Dropboxes. You have to reply to at least one other student by the day after the time that your post is due. So you're going to post for the discussion, and then you'll reply to a different student's post by the next day. Sometime the next day, or 8 p.m. the next day. Very specific. Lecture responses are typically short. I'm just looking for the information that I asked for those. Make sure that you cite any outside sources there too, if you do add anything. After those weekly assignments, we have here our case presentation project, which is going to have 3 parts. One is going to be a paper, which is going to be much more like an assessment. Second part is going to be like a treatment plan. And in between that is going to be our online case discussion, where you're going to share bits and pieces of your case example with the rest of the class, and then they're going to, you're going to post that information with some questions, and then they're going to give you some feedback. The other students are going to give you feedback on that. These 3 parts all have their own separate outlines for you to get more details on. I'll show you where to find those outlines as well. Final part for scoring in this class will be the final exam, 50 points. You'll have 100 minutes to complete it. Make sure that you give yourself enough time to finish the exam once you start it, because this duration of time will pass. You cannot pause the exam. You must finish it once you've started. It can be a challenging exam too. Let me tell you that first. On this page here, we see information on plagiarism and academic honesty. So always make sure that you are citing information from outside sources. Use minimal direct quotations, and make sure anything and everything you use is properly cited in an APA format. Do not copy anything from another source without citing it. Here's a grading scale here. You need a 92% to get an A. Down below, we have the schedule. Now, what you'll notice is, like I mentioned before, due dates are on Sundays by 11:59 p.m. So as soon as it becomes the next day, the assignment's late. Do not try to submit something last minute. I've seen people do that before. I will take 50% off even if this is 2 seconds late. I cannot start making exceptions. Once I start doing that, the ball starts rolling and things just get confusing. So just make sure to get these assignments in ASAP and plan your semester well, because as you can see, there is a variety of different assignments due each week. Keep note that some of these weeks are going to be more challenging than others. See, we got 2 lecture responses on the first week. Now, those don't take a lot of time to submit themselves, but keep in mind you are required to watch the lectures online before you submit those lecture responses. And those can take some time to watch all parts. I'll show you in a second. So lecture responses and then a Dropbox paper. Next week is 1 lecture response and 1 Dropbox paper, so a little easier these 2 weeks, both similar. You also see here where they're required. You can click on these and get access to the different articles, but there's another place to do that too. Week 4 is going to be another fairly tough one with 2 lectures, 2 lecture responses, and a discussion. Quite a bit of reading that week too. So be ready for week 4. I would suggest starting to work on week 4 while you're doing weeks 2 and 3. Then comes week 5. Fairly light load for the weekly assignments, but paper 1 will be due. I also recommend that you work on paper 1 bit by bit during the first month, so that once we get to week 5, you'll be ready to go for paper 1. And maybe you'll already be working on paper 2, because that's going to be due 2 weeks later. In between, we're going to have the case discussions on week 6. So you're going to have a case discussion, lecture response 6, and a Dropbox. So just keep in mind, be as familiar as you can with the general layout of this course so you can continue to plan how you're going to submit these assignments. This is intensive, right? The summer course has a lot of work. I've only been able to scrunch it down a little bit from how it usually is structured during a full semester. I have taken out a little bit here and there, but overall, this is what we're left with. I tried to only include the most essential stuff, but I thought that was critical for you all. Down here, we also see when the final exam is available, from the 18th to the 23rd. I have a lot of other important information just below the assignment schedule as well, so be sure to review all of this. It talks about the importance of specific mental health symptoms from the DSM-5, Another unique thing that's mentioned here is that if you submit paper 1 late, you can submit it late, but you'll get a 10% point penalty every day it's late. That's different than those reading assignments, right? Those weekly drop boxes and discussions. You can submit those anytime for half credit, but this will eventually fizzle out to 0 points if you don't get it done within 10 days after its due date. No late assignments will be accepted after the beginning of final exam week, so keep that in mind too. Once we're in June 18th, I cannot take any more late assignments, no matter what, unless you've gotten an extension for some kind of medical emergency. So make sure to let me know if you do intend on submitting anything that was late, so I'll be able to look for it before I submit the final grades. There's a couple other things I already mentioned about the final exam. I'm going to talk a little bit about what this says in a minute. This is just talking about what to do for case examples, because there's going to be there's going to be a lot of case examples that we're going to talk about. You're going to provide some case examples. I'm going to provide some case examples for you. So I'll talk more about that in a minute. Do make sure that if you choose any case examples to be based on any people in real life, that you change the information enough so that the person cannot be identified by anyone else. We don't want any identifiable information like names, actual birth dates, or anything like that in any of your case examples. Otherwise, feel free to base it, roughly on people that or clients you may have seen in the past. Okay, so that's all the general information here on the syllabus. Let's go ahead and go back to content, and I'll show you the rest of how this course works broadly. I'm going to first start by showing you the rest of how to get to the major, case assignment parts of this class. So first, it's all here in the Start Here module. In the Start Here module, we have the sub-modules for Paper 1, Paper 2, case discussion, and then the final exam, all right in here. So first with Paper 1, you can click on these sub-modules and then just go to that specific information for that part. 6 to 8 pages in length, 12-point font, Times New Roman, double space. Be sure to just keep to that general length. It's okay if you're a page too long. I don't want to see any papers any shorter than this, but I'm not going to be super hard on you about that anyway. Just make sure to keep within this range as best you can. Once again, here, this paper is to be written as if you had recently performed an intake for an individual with co-occurring psychiatric substance use disorders and a substance use disorder. So mental health and substance use. It's required that the case example you make up for paper 1, that you're at least discussing the possibility of both of these a substance use disorder and a mental health disorder. So to get all the more specific information on this paper 1, see, here's the outline. I even include a different video instruction here for how that goes through this outline in more detail. But here you can click and you'll get more information on the paper 1. It starts with the same paragraph information as before, some important details, but then you scroll down and you get the whole thing. It shows everything you need to know. And the video will run through this outline for you too. So be sure to watch this very clearly, read all this information. If you get all this information in there, you should do very well on this paper. So as I mentioned before, the outline, instructions of the outline, submit the paper here by June 7th at 11:59 p.m. And here's another of those APA formatting guidelines, just to make sure you're getting all the right APA format in there. As you notice in this outline here, I want you to use this general structure. APA has other structures for different types of papers. Go ahead and use what I have here. You don't have to number things the way I have. It's up to you if you want to structure it that much. Otherwise, make sure to just keep it in paragraph format. But yes, use this general structure. APA formatting is primarily for citing and referencing. All right, back to table of contents here. So it's the similar setup for the paper 2 treatment plan. I got an outline here and the submission area here. It's meant to be a bit shorter than paper 1. Once again, the outline, you see a bit more structure to it. I've added some boxes in here for you to fill this information out. So feel free to use this structure as well for paper 2. Let's go back up. Here we have the case discussion, which is just a different type of discussion than the ones that you're going to be doing for weekly assignments. One very important difference to keep in mind, when you do your case discussion post, we have the outline here again, So we'll go ahead and look at this outline. This is all the information that's required for this post. Some unique things for this discussion is you have to ask 2 questions about your case, about how you would treat the case example that you did your assessment on, for the other class members to reflect on. Your duty, or one of the parts to this assignment, is providing feedback. So replying to 3 other presenting students. Now that's different than the weekly discussion. So if I go back to the content area, let's go to a week where you're going to have a discussion due instead of a Dropbox. So you see how we have these weekly discussions here at the bottom? Typically for one of these discussions, you only have to reply to 1 other student. So most discussions, that's what it's going to be like. However, when you're doing the case discussion here as part of the main, as the main paper format, or this main project here, this one will require 3 replies. So just make sure to keep that in mind. Stay familiar with these outlines and make sure to read them carefully. And of course, here is where the final exam pre-test and study guide can be found. A little bit of information on the test. When we are in the range of time we will be taking the test, go to assessments, quizzes, and this is where you'll take the test. So June 18th to June 23rd, you'll have the option to take it. As I mentioned before, make sure you give yourself enough time to complete it once you've started. All right, let's go back to content. I'm going to run through at least one of these modules just to show you how these weekly modules. So here's basically week to week are these numbered modules. So we start here with introduction and assessment. In the beginning, we're going to see we have, of course, objectives, readings, and then the assignments. First week, there's not a whole lot of reading we have to do. Well, there's quite a lot from the Atkins textbook, and then 1 journal article. And we see here, we got the article here available for you to look through. So I even have this PDF available for you to read through. You can download this and read it on your own time. Go back up. And we've got the lecture parts. Now these lecture parts can range in how long they are. So this one right here, this one's about 13 minutes. It's kind of choppy software, but most of this should run through pretty well. Oh, important detail I forgot to mention is when you're going through these lectures, some of them are not going to be numbered correctly in the video. So it may be a little bit confusing sometimes. For instance, lecture 2 here, if we go to lecture 2 part 1, it's going to say lecture 3 in the beginning. So just keep in mind this is lecture 2. It's just that I've had to readjust some of this course for the summer class. This used to be lecture 3, but now it is lecture 2 part 1. So always just go by the title up here. Okay, just want to make sure you keep that in mind. So going back to module 1, we see there's going to be 3 parts. So this could take 45 minutes here of lecturing, and then the lecture response will be here. Very short lecture response, just to kind of list things off as it was in the lecture. Then we're going to have lecture 2 though. Another 3 parts here. You have to get through these 3. So you're going to have about an hour and a half of lecturing so that you can get to these lecture response items. You're required to view all parts of the lecture before you can submit a response to the lecture. So make sure to plan time accordingly to get those out. Then once those 2 lectures and lecture responses are done, we have this Dropbox paper on the bottom. You can start this at any time. There's no requirement other than just getting the reading done. Make sure that you are paying close attention to all parts of these Dropboxes and discussions. They're going to ask for unique information. And what's most important is that you're providing specific symptoms and you are addressing all these parts with information specific from the readings that were meant for that week. Dropboxes to range from 300 to 600 words. You submit them by just clicking right here once you've got your paper done. If you have any questions about the information and these prompts, always let me know before you submit something. Always let me know before the day of submission too. What's going to be very important is that you get all this in before these due dates, because we don't want you to end up getting anything in late. So if you have any particular questions about any of this, any of these assignments, always feel free to let me know as soon as possible. Module 2, similar structure. We have objectives, readings, and the assignments up here. And we've got the readings, lectures, lecture 1, Dropbox 2. We go down to anxiety. Now keep in mind that in these modules, these weekly modules, I'm not going to have paper 1 in here. So as you're going from week to week, always keep in mind, here in the overview, we can see in the syllabus that week 5, paper 1 is going to be due. Go over to the module, week 5, it's not going to say that in here. Although it does say it here in the assignments, right? So make sure that you're looking at these full assignments and that you know that week 5 is going to include the 2 reading articles, the 2 lectures, an extra video here, and then discussion 3. Looks like I need to put lecture response in here. Right? Yeah, lecture response 5. I'll have to double check this. Not sure where I put that. Well, good thing I'm reviewing this with all of you. Alright, so let me see here. Lecture response, Dropbox 3. What did I do there? How strange. Anyway, let me know if you have any particular questions. One thing else too. Before we take the exams, there will be lecture slides available for you to review. However, these aren't going to be open until we're done with the majority of these modules. These will all be available by June 14th for you to look through and use while you're going through the exam. It is a challenging exam, so make sure you use your time wisely as you're going through the exam. I think that covers all the essential items. Something else that's not in here yet that will be a little bit more introductory information about me in the Start Here module. Just a little bio and I think a picture of me or something like that. Nothing too much. But other than that, this course should be set as it's meant to be right now. Let me know, of course, if you ever have any questions, send me an email. And I may email that response back to the rest of the class, depending on if it's something that everyone might need to know. Thank you all, and I hope you have a good semester. Take care.